All right, guys, today we're going to talk about sim racing, what it means to me, why I think you should potentially consider it, and we're going to go over a little bit of the different types of hardware that are associated with that. Now, if you're a racing fan and you're still playing on a controller, this video is definitely for you. That's who it's designed for. This is also designed for those of you that might be considering, like, hey, I bought this piece of hardware when I got into it. Now I want to see, I want to kind of test the waters a little bit and see what else is. Now, I've only been sim racing since 2017. I bought my first wheel setup, the T150, when Gran Turismo Sport launched. That's when I got into it. That's when I was like, you know what? I want to try it. I was sitting there and, just like everybody else, you're like playing Gran Turismo. And I think the biggest reason is, the sticks on the PlayStation controllers, they're right next to each other. It's kind of hard to start driving like that. I was using the D-pad all the time and I was pretty good. Like, I was having fun. Like, don't get me wrong, like racing games on a controller are absolutely incredible. I mean, now there are and now there's even better controllers out. Like this right here is the Nacon 5 Revolution Pro. This here is for PlayStation, but it has the joystick up here, so it's a lot easier to use, and they're Hall effect joysticks, so you're getting a lot better rotation out of them as you're using them for your racing. You don't have to worry about stick drift or anything like that. So if you're looking for a controller that's going to give you a really good experience racing, this is great. The only real drawback on like the PlayStation 5 is it does not have the haptic feedback nor the adaptive triggers for the PlayStation 5 game. So, but if you are playing a PS4 game, you will get rumble, but you do not get any rumble when playing on the PlayStation 5, which honestly, guys, is a pretty big is a pretty big down. It is a pretty big downgrade, to be completely honest with you. But I also have the PlayStation 5 DualSense Edge. Like, this controller is absolutely incredible. You get all the haptic feedback, all of the adaptive triggers. The triggers actually feel better. The joysticks feel better. They are swappable. So this is definitely a good option. And I'm not going to lie, it actually feels pretty good when you're playing a game like Gran Turismo 7. That's actually my preferred way to play Gran Turismo 7 at the moment, but we will be testing out a Logitech G923 here pretty soon. And I also have, I also picked up the Thrustmaster TGT2 for the PlayStation 5. So we're going to be checking that out as well here pretty soon. Now, when I started sim racing, like I said, when I first got into it, I bought it for Gran Turismo Sport. I wanted to see if it was worth investing in getting into sim racing. Especially because, like when you're getting older, you're going through your career, you don't have a whole lot of time. You just want to be able to have fun, and you still want to enjoy things. And then you look at the market and you see just so many different options out there. Some of them ranging, like the TGT. Let me tell you the story about this. The TGT2 is an incredible freaking piece of hardware that we'll find out, pretty soon. Now, when I first started racing, I was looking, like, Thrustmaster was like the thing that popped out to me. It was like, boom, Thrustmaster. I looked at the Logitech and I was just like, oh, I don't really like the way that looks. I like the way the Thrustmaster looks a lot better. There's a lot more options for Thrustmaster, whereas for the Logitech, you had like the G20, the G20 or the G, something like that. There was just a few options out there, the G22 or 929 or something. There just wasn't a lot of options for the Logitech thing, but you got like the shifter and everything like that. But over on the Thrustmaster side, you had, like your T150, you had your TX or your T300, you had the TGTs, you had all of these different things. And as a major Gran Turismo fan myself, the TGTs were like built for Gran Turismo. So I was like, gosh dang, that was like that. That was like the wheel I would aspire to. The branding goes a long way when you're looking at these overall wheel setups and stuff. It definitely does, and I can see why there's a lot of confusion out there. You're looking at the price like, oh my gosh, $799 for a wheel setup, and then you look at that, contrast that versus like your $65 to couple $100 controller, and it's like, oh man, you feel that like sense of like, oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you guys. There's the Thrustmaster T128, which is essentially $200, the same price as the the Nacon 5 Revolution Pro or the PlayStation DualSense or any of your Xbox controllers, you know, like the Stealth Wireless from Turtle Beach, they're $200. So you look at the cost of like a $200 wheel setup versus the $200 controller, and that there kind of helps you that there kind of helps you see and understand that, like, hey man, like the plastic feeling, when you look at those, when you look at that experience, if you're going to spend $200 on a controller for your racing games, I do recommend that you at least give the T128 a try. Now, I played with this. Thrustmaster sent that out to me, and I was able to play around with that and get it set up and play a lot of games on it. And that thing actually works pretty dang good. Like, it was compatible with all the games. It felt good. It had a nice little ratio of force feedback to actually give you some feeling as you're driving and stuff. Very fun, very good, very entry level, pretty much in line with like your Logitech or your some of the other brands like the PXN or some of these other brands that are out there. I personally, I don't recommend the PXN just because it is not actually a wheel. It recognizes as a controller on the consoles. So I do find that you're gonna have a lot of compatibility issues with that if you buy that, and it will end up sitting in a closet more so than trying to help you get your foot in the door for sim racing. Now, I understand that, you know, the overall experience that you can get from a controller, you know, you come in, you sit down, you turn on your system, you throw on your controller, and you just start playing. There's nothing else necessary to get out or do anything like that. Now, going from a controller to a wheel, I mean, at first you're definitely gonna have that, like, oh my gosh, man, it's gonna feel, I would say it is a little bit jarring, but if you're driving a car, like, you'll get used to it pretty quickly. Like, pretty soon you'll start beating your times on the controller, and it will come a lot more natural. It will feel better. It really does intensify the overall experience. And when you go from, you know, like that experience of just being able to come down, sit down, get your controller and start playing versus, you know, like pull out your wheel stand. Like right here we have the, like this is where I have mine sitting. Like that Thrustmaster T248 just sits right there. And when I want to play it, I just bring it out and I slide it up under my desk and it fits. I put my gaming chair in it. So you can use that with like a gaming chair or whatever. And then over there, I have my Fanatec, my Fanatec set up on my FGT cockpit, which is an actual cockpit that, you know, just kind of, you bring it out, and it's like, those are usually built to be stationary. Like, you'll put the cockpit there, you'll have the monitor and stuff. I just haven't got that one set up right now. So it's just sitting there. It's kind of a little bit, gosh, I'll just show you. It's like right there, just kind of sitting over there under that TV that I'm going to stick it on in a little while, or put it up. I'm going to bring that out so that I can sit on there and use that. But when you get like these different things, and then you got to pull them out so that you can actually like get in and sit in. Like, I get that it's more, the sim racing is going to be more of one of those things where you're like going to do this on the weekend, versus like an everyday thing. Like, you would be able to pull out your controller and just sit there, and it's quick and easy to get out and stuff. You probably want to know if it's worth it. Is it worth that extra setup time and hassle to get into the game, or to pull out your setup and, you know, like unfold it or whatever, if you get a cockpit or something that you can fold up? Absolutely. Absolutely, it is worth it. You'll pull it out, you'll get in there. And here's the thing, once you get in, that's getting in is probably the hard part, honestly, getting it all set up or finding the energy to get it done. But getting in it, like, once you're in it, you're in it. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude, I don't want to stop, because it is so addicting and it is so fun that you're gonna immediately, almost immediately after you get it all figured out, almost immediately after that, you're going to be like, wow, this is incredible. And the more time you spend in it, the more you're going to start to feel yourself in your skills increasing, getting better. You're going to, pretty soon you're going to be able to pretty soon your controller skills are not going to be able to keep up with you on a wheel, period. Like, it is going to be very hard for you to transition back to a controller after going to a wheel setup. And I mean, if you train them both at the same time, maybe you'll be all right, but you're going to learn things on the wheel setup that you didn't even know were possible in some of these games. Now, the controller does introduce plenty of limitations that you're not going to find on a wheel, and the wheel setup is going to be more more hands-on than the controller setup. So it's going to be like, oh my gosh, there's things that you will have to learn on a wheel setup that just aren't possible on a controller. And like the quick reaction times of being able to hit like an e-brake and get on the throttle and the brake and all of that stuff and steering and all of that stuff. It really does. it really changes. Like, it changes a lot. Like, after you get a wheel setup and stuff, you're going to go from like the game feeling like a game, being able to like pull off like wicked weird drifts and all of that stuff, to actually having to learn how to pull off a drift with how a wheel setup in a car is set up, like a pedals, stick shift, the wheel, all of that stuff. It's definitely better and really does translate to real life driving when you get in there and do that. Now, there's, like I was saying earlier, there are multiple different price points of getting into sim racing. My brother actually called me the other day and was like, hey, I want to get a sim racing setup. And the first thing that came to my mind is like, okay, he's older than me, doesn't really do a whole lot of video gaming. I'm pretty sure he wants that plug and play. He lives far enough away to where I can't just like run over to his house and get him all set up whenever he wants to play. So this is something that he's going to have to be able to do on his own and have it be the least amount of. As I was saying, my brother, had called me the other day and asked me about getting into some sort of a sim racing equipment. And like I was saying before, it needed to be a plug and play experience. So what I recommended to him is the T248 with the Next Level Racing wheel stand 2.0. That way, that gives him the ability, once he gains enough knowledge and once he gets better at it, he will be able to transition into a more robust wheel setup and still be able to fully utilize the Next Level Racing wheel stand 2.0, which is an absolute beast of a build. Very easy to set up. Like I was showing you guys earlier, it's easy to just set over there in the corner out of your way. And then very minimal setup for that. The reason why I recommend for him, the T248 is it is literally a plug and play experience. Like, you just plug it in and then you can play with it. But then it also has the ability, as you continue to gain skills and you get better with it, it gives you the ability to get in there and play with more settings, to be able to set the wheel rotation, to be able to adjust and set and fine tune the overall force feedback settings. It's not as one-to-one as like a direct drive, but it is good enough to be able to convey a very good sense of, feeling on the road, the overall pneumatics and springs and pressures and suspension, all of that stuff. It does a decent enough job to give you, to be able to convey a competent experience while racing. Whereas there's obviously other wheelbases and wheel setups that are going to be a lot more involved. Now, my other recommendation is if you're wanting to really fully experience like what sim racing really feels like, is the next step up is obviously that direct drive wheelbase, that direct drive setup, like your Fanatec DD Pro. My Fanatec DD Pro is the 8 Newton meter model. I actually bought like the R330 rim and V2 universal hubs so that I could, for Xbox, so that I could play with all three of my, like Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. But then the bigger wheel radius for that rally experience, that is probably my main discipline. That is the one that I love the most. Like, I love rally games. To me, that is 100% worth having a full-on direct drive setup, or just any setup. Like, any setup for me for rally racing is actually incredible. But like I'm saying, guys, if you're on the fence, honestly, about getting into sim racing, this is probably the best time ever to get into it. These games are starting to get significantly better. The overall fidelity and just how things feel, the fidelity in your wheelbases, what you can expect to get out of them, the way that they are able to mimic and reproduce actual driving sensations in these wheelbases now is second to freaking none. Like, I went from playing games like the original Gran Turismo on like a controller, man, and if you contrast like the physics and everything from back then to what that it is now, it is a lot more realistic, and you don't need a super expensive PC to get that feeling. Like there's Assetto Corsa Competizione, in my opinion, is probably the best that you can get on consoles when it comes to actual the overall force feedback and feelings, and you know, just the overall tuned experience that you can get on a console platform. Obviously EA Sports WRC is incredible for rally racing. All of the Kiloton racing games are incredible for rally racing. And actually, you'll notice, like if you're a KT racing fan, like a WRC fan, you're going to notice immediately when you go from a controller to a wheel that game is built for a wheel first, and then a controller is kind of just like we're just going to chuck it on there and we'll see how it goes. Like you can tell, like you can immediately tell just how much better the overall experience is when you're actually utilizing a full-on racing setup, like a cockpit, wheel, and all of that stuff. And the other major thing that has finally come out and actually good enough and delivers probably the best experience when it comes to racing is VR. And yes, you have access to VR on a PlayStation 5. You could get a PSVR 2. You'll be able to play Gran Turismo, and that experience in a wheel, on a wheel setup with the PSVR on, oh my gosh, it is so immersive, it's not even funny. So when people ask, like, or when people say things like, oh man, I just don't want to do that, I want to stay on my controller and stuff, I'm like, yes guys, sim racing can be a little bit expensive. It can. It can definitely, like you can get a dang good competent setup for like $600. Like that's talking like cockpit and everything. Like you can get a good enough setup to really fully start to enjoy that, and then you can build yourself into a more full-on setup. And there are 100% ways to sim race in a small space. Like most of these wheelbases come with clamps that you can mount right to your desk. And honestly guys, if you're gonna do that, just screw your pedals to the floor. Seriously, just screw your pedals to the floor, put them in a good spot where you feel comfortable, and screw them to the floor if that is what you need to do. It's not rocket science or anything like that, but having the cockpit, or I recommend the Wheel Stand 2.0 as like a perfect entry level thing. It's just because you can roll your gaming chair up and you can stick the two front tires in it, and you can set it up, or you can just, or if you go with the Wheel Stand 2.0 Lite, you can literally just pull that thing right up to the couch and you're good to go. Like I'm thinking about picking one of those up to review it on the channel here, so that I can show you guys. But yeah, as time goes on, guys, I'm gonna start doing a lot more of this sim racing stuff, because I think we're at a point where I'm gaining enough knowledge with all the sim racing equipment that I've been getting, that has been sent to me, that I've been buying myself. So I want to put together more of that, like, hey guys, this is the entry level thing. Let's get you onto a wheelbase so that you can start enjoying your racing games even more than you already do right now. Because I'll tell you, going from sim racing is always going to be the one constant for you in gaming. The one constant where everything else is going to change, get worse, get better, any of that stuff. Sim racing is only going to move forward and get better as time goes on. Like we've seen the evolution of games like Gran Turismo all the way up to Assetto Corsa Competizione and beyond. And when you look at that evolution, when you look at the overall evolution of how things have changed and gotten better, even your knockoff racing games like Need for Speed or Forza Horizon actually feel better on a wheel setup than they do on a controller. And it's crazy. Like the one hurdle that you'll probably have to get over is the whole plan and chase view versus playing in like bonnet cam or hood cam. I think bonnet is probably that in between. You could still see some of the car, you could still see, and then you get like a better overall view so that you could see better. That's probably where I think a lot of racers that play chase cam usually end up as probably bonnet cam, and bonnet cam is good across the board. You can use that on all of them. Once you get more into it, then you'll start switching over to cockpit view and stuff like that. And I feel like cockpit view is pretty immersive, but it's really hard to like show people that when you're trying to do like the overall like showing off the games and stuff. Most people either want to see chase cam or they want to see bonnet cam. So overall, guys, my experience with sim racing since 2017 has been absolutely incredible, and I can fully recommend this experience even if you are somebody that is just a casual, like you're just casual. Like this is designed for the casual person. Like these products that we talk about, like the Logitech, the Thrustmaster, the Fanatec, these are products that are built for the casual masses, so you can get in there and play and experience these things and have fun. And then you can, you know, continue to grow and have even more fun. So yes, guys, I absolutely recommend sim racing setups. I do. I think it's incredible, and I think that you can have a lot of fun with it and get a much better experience. So, all right, guys, if you like this content, do not forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.